What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing some battles in the Open Ultra League running Enamorus, since a few people requested it after I ran the Force of Nature trio. It has access to Fairy Wind, Fly and Grass Knot, so it could be a very strong core breaker against the current meta, although it is a very glassy Pokemon. I decided to pair it with Enamorus since I just hatched my first Charcadet. It covers some of Enamorus' weaknesses and I figured it's a bit more unique than the Cerulege since of course it shares the exact same typing and moveset as Chandelure. I'm also running Salazzle as the third pick, and I will admit I made some monumental mistakes in these battles, but I've decided to leave most of them in since we can all learn from our mistakes, and if nothing else you can all just laugh at how poorly I played in some of these battles. But with that being said, let's get into the question of the day. What do you think is the coolest looking Pokemon currently in Pokemon Go? Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Alright, so going into the first battle, we'll lead Enamorus into Tapu Fini, so this is a matchup where Grass Knot will hopefully come in clutch. I don't expect the opponent to know what charge moves Enamorus can run, so we go straight for the Grass Knot. Grass Knot does huge damage to the Tapu Fini. At this point, I still don't know if I will be able to Fairy Wind farm them down, but I'm going to shield up the Surf there. The opponent's going to swap into a Shadow and Frost, and we don't have a great response whatsoever, so I'm going to go straight for a Grass Knot here, then I will swap into my Salazzle, and for whatever reason, we get a full Incinerate in for free. That definitely should not be happening, but I'm not going to complain. We're going to go straight for the Poison Fang here. Poison Fang will do some very nice damage, or grab the final shield from the opponent. At this point, I'm happy to let Salazzle go down. We are going to wait out our Switch Shock slightly, come in with the Armor Rouge here, and of course I will have to shield up a Brutal Swing as it does hit for super effective damage, but I'm going to come out with a ton of loaded energy. So the opponent's third and final Pokemon is going to be a Skeledirge. I'm going to assess how much damage this does if it's able to two-shot, and Psyshock would not quite be able to two-shot, so I'm going to swap into my Enamorus, catch the charge move, and it is a Shadow Ball, which is huge for me. Now the opponent swaps back into Tapu Fini. I'm going to play it safe, just go for a Flame Charge here. Flame Charge will ramp up my attack, and now a Psyshock will certainly be enough damage with that boost to the attack to take out the Skeledirge, and I'm able to take that game. So GG to the opponent there. Into next game we see Enamorus into Obstagoon, so a great lead matchup for me. The opponent's going to say swap into a Galissapod, so also amazing for me. I'm going to stay in at least initially, go straight for the Fly. Fly does grab an early shield from the opponent, and the opponent is going to farm up quite a lot of energy, so I'm going to shield here. They do throw just before we make it to the next Fly. I can overfarm just slightly, going for the Fly here, and Fly from this range actually takes out the Galissapod. Huge damage there, and let's see what that third Pokemon is. They're not going to come in with the Obstagoon, and once again, it is a Skeledirge, so we're going to come in with the Salazzle, and the opponent isn't going to throw straight away, which is huge for me, as I can now go for a Dragon Pulse, and once again, I have no intentions of shielding my Salazzle. The opponent's actually going to bank a ton of energy, swap back into the Obstagoon, but that's fine with me, as we can go straight for a Poison Fang. Poison Fang going to debuff their defense. Unfortunately, I don't think Night Slash will quite take us out from this range, so they will actually be able to get a nice counter farm down. But it doesn't matter, we can come in with the Enamorus here, and I will be able to let this move go through. They didn't farm to a potential Hyper Beam or a Gunk Shot, so we can safely let the move go through, farm two back-to-back Flies, throw on the CMP tie, and this will be enough damage to take out the Obstagoon. And now I swap straight away, expecting the opponent to just blind throw the Disarming Voice, and that's exactly what they do. Disarming Voice is resisted damage, so that's huge for me. Now we can safely shield this up. It doesn't matter what they throw. We can go for a side shot. We would win CMP if they were at back-to-back charge moves, but I don't think they are. It doesn't really matter. The opponent has to farm to 100 energy here. They're not at 100 energy, and it still doesn't matter as Enamorus would also win CMP. We can go for that Fly straight away, and of course, from about 10 HP remaining, this will be taking out the Skeledirge, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there. Into the next battle, we see Enamorus into a Shadow Feraligatr. Now, another Water-type Pokemon, although Feraligatr is a lot glassier and also spammier than the Tapu Fini, so I go for the Grass Knot. We full send it, but they shield this up, and at this point I realise that's a huge mistake. If I go for that Grass Knot, they can now outpace me to the Hydro Cannons each time, so actually I have to just let it go through there, which is really unfortunate because of course I've got two Fire-type Pokemon in the back, but I was never going to be able to outpace them to the next charge move, so I just had to do that. And now we go for a Poison Fang. Of course it doesn't do much damage there, but I should now be able to Incinerate farm them all the way down, so we're going to go for that farm down, but the opponent makes a really smart play there, banking 4 Shadow Claws worth of energy, then swapping out, because now we've got 2 Incinerate users. They are always going to get off 1 more Shadow Claw and be able to throw a Hydro Cannon unless we do bank a charge move coming into that matchup, which unfortunately we're not able to do. We do get the snipe with the Enamorus, but unfortunately they do make it to the Hydro Cannon, one-shotting the Armor Rouge, and they're able to Shadow Claw, farm down my Salazzle, and we do end up losing that game. But that was a really nice play from the opponent. Of course, we know that if we see a Shadow Feraligatr in the lead now, we should just go straight for Fly. But into the next battle, we're going to see a Gliscor, and we do typically wall the energy on our Enamorus. So the opponent does eventually swap after banking some energy into their Skeledirge. Now, unfortunately, we don't have the best matchups up against Skeledirge, but we did chip with that Fly, put them into range where Psyshock will KO. So I am going to shield up this charge move here. I think at this point I can just go for a full Incinerate farm down. I will have to double shield here as they were at 100 energy. So this is definitely going to be another Shadow Ball, but we do correctly shield it up. We can go for the Incinerate farm down and come out with so much loaded energy. So the opponent comes in with a Dragonite. We blind throw a Psyshock here. Psyshock grabs the final shield from the opponent. I've realized that I'm still going to wall all of their energy, so I might as well just swap into my Enamorus straight away. Go for the Fly there. Fly does big damage in this matchup, and they're not going to go for an Earthquake. Night Slash doesn't KO. That will allow me to make it to another Fly up against the Gliscor. Fly will be taking out the Gliscor, and then all I've got to do here, since they are not running a Shadow Dragonite, is just fire off a Poison Fang. Well, I mean, I probably could have gone for a Dragon Pulse there, but I feel like this is the safe play. The opponent isn't going to be able to bank 2 charge moves here, so they're going to go for the Dragon Claw. Dragon Claw still won't KO anyways, and we can just come in, go for the Psyshock with our Armor Rouge. We've dropped their defense. Psyshock easily takes out the Dragonite, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there. Internet's going to see Poliwrath in the lead, so a very positive lead matchup. Unfortunately though, if they shield the first charge move, it does get slightly worse for me, since of course they can go for Icy Winds, but they let the Fly go through. Now here I could have tried to swap and catch an Icy Wind, but I figured there's no point in that. I might as well just maintain alignment, go for the full Fairy Wind farm down. They are going to debuff me, but that's okay. And now they're going to come in with a Landorus Therian form, which is really cool to see. Of course, I did make a video featuring Landorus recently with the rest of the Force of Nature trio, and I do know that actually it's going to be quite difficult to beat with my double fire type Pokemon in the back. And unfortunately they've also got a Shadow Drapion running Aquatail. Aquatail hits very hard now since it did get a buff to the attack, but we do at least live 1, so at this point I'm just going to let Salazzle go down. I'm going to come back in with my Enamorus here because I can't afford to shield with my Armor Rouge. So we're going to go for the Fly. Fly grabs the final shield from the opponent. I recognize I will actually be able to pace at the same time as the next Aquatail, but Enamorus does very comfortably win CMP here, so Fly will be enough damage to take out the Shadow Drapion at this point. And now here I've got to be very careful. I swap, I try to catch a Stone Edge. The opponent does overfarm though, and the opponent is going to just settle for a Sandsear Storm, which doesn't quite take us out there. So Incinerate takes out the Landorus, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there. Into next game, another Skeledirge. So Skeledirge looking very common so far. We're going to say swap into our Salazzle, and the opponent responds with a Poliwrath. Now, this is a matchup that we can flip with a slight energy advantage. We go for that Poison Fang after 3 Incinerates, and the opponent's actually going to fire off just an Icy Wind, which of course is resisted damage. It debuffs my attack, but I can very easily let the move go through, so not really sure why they threw there. But either way, we can now go for a Poison Fang, and we'll outpace them to yet another Poison Fang. And ideally, I think I'd prefer if I grab a shield here. The opponent does end up shielding, and they throw straight away, so they're going to go for another Icy Wind. At this point they are energy dry, so we can just go for a full Fairy Wind farm down. They're still not at a charge move with the Skeledirge, so we're going to go straight for the Fly here. Fly is going to be no shielded by the opponent. We can just safely shield up this move. I will be able to outpace them to the next charge move as well, which is huge for me, and Fly from this range will definitely KO, so I'm expecting to grab the final shield from the opponent. I'm going to go for 2 more Fairy Winds, swap, make the catch onto my Armor Rouge. Honestly, they're not going to go for a Shadow Ball from that range, so I should have just no-shielded, and they've got an Obstagoon in the back, so yep, 100% should have just no-shielded there. And unfortunately now, Obstagoon is actually going to go for an Obstruct there, which I didn't expect. I should have gone for the Flame Charge sooner, but I didn't want to throw on alignment there, because then of course if they were only going to go for a Night Slash, they would outpace me to the next charge move. But like that, because they buffed their defense, they actually survived 2 Flame Charges, and not only that, I'm not certain that I can Fairy Wind farm them down. It will be close, but but I had to throw there. They were 5 away from the Night Sash, so we go for the fly. Can we make it to another fly? No, unfortunately, not able to get the new mechanic. Incinerate takes us out, and we do unfortunately lose that game. But GG's to that opponent there. Internet's going to see Beware in the lead, so I haven't seen this Pokemon in ages, and luckily for me, we do completely wall it with our Enamorus, at least the charge moves anyways. Unless they are running Stomp, but that's quite unlikely since it is a pretty rubbish move. They go for Superpower, that is double resisted. That still gets us into the yellow health range though, which is crazy. But we're going to go straight for a fly. And speaking of crazy, that is huge damage there. We are now going to swap into our Armor Rouge. I figured even a Blast Burn is going to hurt, so I'm actually just going to shield that up. Go for the Incinerate, farm down, and the opponent's going to come in with a Tentacruel. Now, those of you that have been looking at this team thinking, Tentacruel would absolutely destroy it. You are kind of correct, but we do have nice coverage here in the form of Side Shock on our Armor Rouge. So we land the first one. Once again, the opponent doesn't farm to a Scald, making it a very easy decision for me to let the Acid Spray go through. We can now go for a Side Shock, take out the Tentacruel, and we are still able to make it to another Side Shock despite being double debuffed in our defense. They do get the farm down. I'm not actually going to allow them to get an extra Shadow Claw in, so we swap straight away into Salazzle. We go straight for the Poison Fang, and that will debuff their defense. All I have to do here is safely shut up wherever they throw. They full send the payback, and now Incinerate would take them out there, so the opponent just concedes the match. So GG's to the opponent there. Into next game we see Enamorus into a Shadow Swampert. So this is a good matchup for me. Well, decent matchup for me. The opponent's going to swap into Registeel. We were very slow to swap out there, so what I either should have done is bank more energy on my Enamorus or just swapped a lot faster. And because they get a debuff here, unfortunately Flame Charge will not be enough damage to put them into Incinerate farm down range, so I'm going to have to throw a second Flame Charge to get rid of them. So a bit unfortunate there. I also put me into farm down range for a potential Swampert farm down, but instead they come in with Pidgeot and get that farm down. And actually, I don't mind this as much because now we can come in with Salazzle. I'm just going to no shield. They Blind Throw, it's just a Feather Dance, so that's fine with me. We're also going to make it to that Poison Fang. And Poison Fang, we are double debuff, but we're actually going to grab a shield there from the opponent. The opponent is going to bank a ton of energy, swap back into their Shadow Swampert. We are just going to full send the Grass Knot here. They've only got one shield remaining, and they let it go through. It one-shots the Shadow Swampert. At this point, I can very safely shield this up. Of course, they go for the Feather Dance, but the opponent recognizing at this point it is game over, so they just concede the match there. So GG's to the opponent there. Into next game we see Enamorus into Steelix. So this is actually a really good matchup. If they're running Breaking Spike and Earthquake, we're going to resist everything, actually double resist everything. But speaking of double resisting, the opponent makes an amazing catch, catching a double resisted Grass Knot onto their Talonflame. And that's really poor from me because I had 2 turns to react in time to make sure I didn't throw that Grass Knot there, so really poor gameplay from me. And now we go for a Poison Fang. Unfortunately, I'm not really sure why I came in with the Salazzle because we can't really tank a fly that comfortably. We go for a second Poison Fang, at least grabbing the shield here, but I can't really afford to double shield my Salazzle, so we let the fly go through, and that doesn't quite take us out, but they actually get one extra Incinerate in. At this point, I should be able to come back in with my Enamorus. I don't want to show my third Pokemon just yet, and let's see, the opponent's actually going to come in with a Shadow for Alligator. So this is actually positive for me, but Steelix does have a charge move loaded already, so it's going to be quite scary here. We are going to be able to shield this up. If the opponent makes a catch, then that will be a little bit difficult for me. They go for the Hydro Cannon, they don't make the catch, so we just go for that Grass Knot immediately. Grass Knot will of course take out Shadow for Alligator, but they will now be able to outpace me to the charge move. They make it to a potential Earthquake. Is this the Earthquake? Yes it is. It one-shots Armor Rouge, and unfortunately despite completely walling Steelix, double resisting everything, a Breaking Spike from this range will be enough to KO. Grass Knot definitely wouldn't take out the Steelix there, which is why I didn't throw, and unfortunately we end up losing that game. But GG's to that opponent there. Really nice catch and really poor reaction time from me. But into the next battle, we see a Tentacruel in the lead. They're going to respond to my Say Swap with a Crustle, and you may have also noticed this team is also triple weak to Rock, which is not ideal, especially when they get a full farm down there. We don't get off the new mechanic and get to a Poison Fang. Although realistically that doesn't make too much of a difference. We're going to shield this up. I should be able to make it to a fly with just one more Fairy Wind, and the opponent doesn't make it to a second Rock Slide. We're going to go for the fly. The opponent's actually going to double shield their Crustle. Not ideal for me, but they commit to the full farm down. They get greedy, and this gives me a slither of hope here. Fly takes out the Crustle. We're going to swap straight away, and they've got Clefable in the back, and this is actually now looking positive for me. I'm going to let the first charge move go through. Of course, we do resist everything they can possibly throw. They do unfortunately debuff my attack here, but we're going to go for the Flame Charge. Flame Charge is going to boost it right back up straight away. And here, all I want to do is hold on to my energy. I know, of course, I do resist the Fairy Wind damage, so I can just build to the back-to-back Side Shocks. They swap back into Tentacruel. All I have to do here is throw them back-to-back. But I don't. I overfarm here. I didn't realize the opponent did bank some energy before they swapped out in the lead matchup, and they're able to make it to a Scald. Then Poison Jab farmed down my Enamorus there, and I could have very easily won that game, but I completely threw it away. So GG's to that opponent, and a huge mistake from me once again. But into the next battle, we see Cobalion in the lead. I've actually got 2 fire types, so I actually swap anyways. Luckily for me, I swap into my Salazzle, and I can fully incinerate, farm down the Gengar there. The opponent's now going to come in with Charizard. We've got 100 energy, so we go for the Poison Fang immediately. Poison Fang going to debuff their defense, and I will make it to 2 more Poison Fangs before they farm me down, or even make it to a Dragon Claw to prevent that Poison Fang. But either way, I'm going to grab the first shield here, go for another Poison Fang, grab the final shield, swap into my Armarouge, and the opponent swaps straight away back into Cobalion, and the opponent realizes there's nothing they can do, so they just concede the match there. So GG's to the opponent there. Into the next game, we see Greninja in the lead. Now, despite having a type advantage in this matchup, it's not very comfortable for me. So I'm going to shield up the Hydro Cannon. They're going to swap into Cresselia, and I didn't realize this until after I threw a charge move here. But Armarouge actually completely walls everything Cresselia can possibly throw, including the Future Sight, the Moonblast, the Aurora Beams if they're running it, or the Grass Knot. We resist everything here. So what I should have done is swapped out straight away, banked a ton of energy on my Enamorus, and now unfortunately we can't overfarm here, but we're only going to get to 100 energy. You can't go over that, so instead I'm going to undercharge this, hoping to get the Incinerate farm down, but I mess up, and unfortunately they get to another charge move here. I can't really shield this up. I do just barely live that, but we're only going to get off 1 charge move up against Greninja, and whilst this is boosted, it is also resisted damage, so Greninja does tank that very comfortably. So we did bank some energy on the Enamorus though. That is sort of okay for us, but still not amazing. So I'm going to shield this up. The opponent's going to go for another Hydro Cannon. We are going to go for the fly here. I go for 2 extra Fairy Winds before throwing, assuming they let it go through, but they actually don't. They shield up the Greninja there. I'm now going to have to let the Enamorus go down. They swap out straight away, but they come in with a Charizard, so this isn't looking too good for us. I think in the Zero Shield scenario, might just barely take this, but then, of course, they can just Water Shuriken, farm me down here. I think I will live a Blast Burn just barely, but they full send an Overheat, and that is enough damage to take out the Salazzle there, unfortunately, and we end up losing that game. But GG's to that opponent. Once again, another stupid mistake up against that Cresselia, and into the next battle. And once again, what's with my reactions? So poor today. We end up throwing a fly, but they swapped into a Swampert. If we went for the Grass Knot there, easy one shot, but unfortunately now I'm gonna have to throw a second charge move here. Fly would of course take them out here, and I'm thinking I should actually live this. This is a regular Swampert. We barely live it though, and I'm hoping the opponent is just gonna throw their energy straight away, but instead they're gonna go for a full Mudshot farm down, which I think is even worse for me, because now I come in with my Armarouge, but they will make it to back-to-back Hydro Cannons, so certainly not ideal here. I'm going to have to double shield. They do at least throw back-to-back moves straight away, so Hydro Cannon going to grab the final shield. I thought I'd be able to farm them down there, but they swap out already. Luckily for me, they don't get off a Rock Slide, so the Side Shock does one-shot the Machamp, and now this should be very comfortable in the end game. All I have to do, go for a Flame Charge, ramp up my attack, and the opponent is going to recognize there's nothing they can do, so they just concede the match there. So GG's to the opponent there. Into the next game, we see Enamorus into Shadow Feraligatr once again. This time, we are not going to go for the Grass Knot, but I'm also not going to throw straight away here, because I realize that if I reveal that we've got such an attack-weighted Pokemon that we're going to win CMP, they're probably not going to throw on CMP the second time around. They might try and make a catch, which I can't really afford. So instead, we're going to go for the fly, this time throwing on CMP, and the opponent lets that go through. Now, of course, that doesn't quite take them out, but it does put them into Incinerate farm down range, which is much better for us than the previous time we faced a Feraligatr. I'm able to get the Incinerate farm down, and the opponent's going to come in with a Skeledirge. So we're running a double Crocodilia theme team so far. It would be cool to see if they were running the Krookodile in the back, but of course we don't really want to see that with our Armarouge, so hopefully it isn't, but we're going to let this move go through. Can't really afford to shield. They do full send the Shadow Ball. We're going to come in with our Armarouge, go for the Flame Charge here. They are in Flame Charge range, and I figured this is my final Pokemon. Might as well ramp up my attack. It would take them out anyways, so I'm going to shield this up, go for the Incinerate farm down. They're probably going to swap into their final Pokemon, Pokemon, but unfortunately for them, it is a Toxicroak, and whether we were boosted or not, this Psyshock would easily one-shot the Toxicroak. I'm now going to be able to Incinerate, farm down the Skeledirge, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there. Into the next game, we see Enamorus into a Shadow Gallade. Now, we've actually got a really strong team up against Shadow Gallade, assuming they are running Psycho Cut as the fast move, as my entire team resists everything that Shadow Gallade can throw. So, huge for me, but unfortunately, Greedent is a bit tricky to deal with. Of course, I am double resisting the Mud Shot, but Body Slam has already got me into very close to the yellow health range, so whilst I would technically live this, yeah, it would have been very close to taking me out there. So we are once again going to throw on the CMP tie, Fly coming through, going to be no shielded this time around, and this time I will let this go through. I'm assuming I can just barely make it to the next Fly before they farm me down, and we do barely get there. That was very close. Fly is actually going to be shielded by the opponent, so I'm actually going to swap out here. Swap into my Salazzle. Going to let the Body Slam go through. I will be able to make it to a Poison Fang just before they make it to the next Body Slam, and this will finally get rid of the Greedent. And the opponent is unfortunately running a Guzzlord in the back, and if we had just a slither of health more on our Enamorus, I think we'd be looking fine here, but unfortunately we are so low that one Dragon Tail will take us out, and unfortunately one Fairy Wind, whilst it is double super effective, certainly isn't going to do that much damage up against the Guzzlord. So I'm going to shield this up. The opponent makes a mistake though, they swap into their Shadow Gallade. Now what I'm thinking here is, I want to throw my Flame Charge, but I also want to use my Enamorus as a sacrificial swap, so I don't want to throw straight away. Instead, I tried to make the catch there, but it is very difficult to catch when you're running Incinerate, so unfortunately, the opponent does rightly just go for the overfarm, and even a resisted close combat takes out the Armarouge there, and unfortunately, we do end up losing that game. But honestly, don't think we could have done much up against that Guzzlord in the back anyways, but GG's to the opponent there. Into the next battle, we're going to see a Galvantula in the lead. We say swap into our Salazzle, and the opponent responds with a Wall Rain, which is actually a positive matchup for us. Of course, I do have to shield a potential Earthquake. The opponent full sends the Earthquake there, and now I'm just going to farm to 100 energy, go for the Poison Fang, and if they shield, it doesn't really matter because this is a CMP tie. Icicle Spear would not take us out, so the opponent actually just going to fully sacrifice the Wall Rain, grab the shield advantage, and come in with an Umbreon. Now we go for the Poison Fang there. I can go for one more extra Incinerate, and then go for another Poison Fang. Possibly could have gone for the Dragon Pulse there, expecting a shield, but the opponent actually doesn't double shield, so sorry, so I should have gone for that Dragon Pulse, dealt even more damage. The opponent's going to swap back into Galvantula, and I'm just going to play it safe, use my shield here. They are purified, it could be returned. It actually ends up being a Bug Buzz, which I'm not sure how much damage that would do, but it probably would threaten to KO. So I'm very glad I shielded, and the opponent just concedes the match there. So go into the next battle, see Enamorus into a Shadow Tangrowth. So this is a positive matchup, also very spicy pick from the opponent there, but I'm going to go for the Fly Throw on the CMP type with a potential Rock Slide, and Fly is going to one-shot the Shadow Tangrowth. They do not respect the damage, and now they come in with Gliscor. Once again, this is a pretty good matchup for me, as I will resist the typical charge moves coming from the Gliscor. They are going to overfarm here, and even at this point, I don't think Aerial Ace will take us out, so I'm going to no shield. It's just a Night Slash. We can go for another Fly, expecting to grab the first shield from the opponent, and the opponent will be shielding that up, so I swap into my Armarouge here, and I am going to shield up the first charge move here. I think at some point they did actually get a Night Slash boost. We didn't see it on screen, but I heard it when I was playing, and now I'm going to double shield, go for the full Incinerate farm down, quite risky, but the opponent's got a Shadow Machamp in the back, so the risk pays off, and now I can go for a Psyshock. Psyshock number 1 grabs the final shield from the opponent, and Psyshock number 2 will certainly be enough damage to one-shot the Shadow Machamp, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there. Into the next battle, we see Enamorus into Greedent. So Greedent been a tricky Pokemon to deal with so far. Unfortunately, we get weak connection at the start there, but we don't miss out on any fast moves, so that's okay. I'm going to let the first Body Slam go through. I'm going to overfarm here, and the opponent is going to swap into a Skarmory, so I'm glad I didn't throw straight away. Finally, my reactions are fast enough to swap out there and not throw a resisted charge move. I'm going to shield this up. Honestly, I've got no idea whether we live a Brave Bird or not, so I play it safe. We go for the full Incinerate farm down. We come out with 100 energy as well, so if they come back in with the Greedent, we can go straight for the Flame Charge here. Flame Charge going to boost our attack, and now we can go for a Psyshock, and Psyshock is going to hit a bit harder, getting the Greedent fairly low. They're now going to throw a charge move here. I'm just going to let this move go through. They go for the Crunch. That actually doesn't quite take us out there, but then they snipe with a Pelipper, and Pelipper is looking pretty tricky for us. I need one of these Flies to connect up against the Pelipper. The first one gets shielded. We throw the second one straight away. Can we connect with the Fly here? here. Unfortunately, not able to do so. And as well, I was thinking, can we actually outpace them here? It will be close, but unfortunately, it's only 4 to the next weather ball, so I have to swap, catch the move onto my Salazzle, but they can now just go for a full wing attack farm down. That weather ball did the perfect amount of damage, but we do at least make it to a Dragon Pulse. I need this to KO. Dragon Pulse doesn't quite take out the XL Pelipper. They get the farm down and they come out with another weather ball loaded, so they can just fire it off straight away, taking out the Enamorus, and unfortunately we do lose that game. But GG's to that opponent there. Into the next game, we see Tapu Fini in the lead. So we landed it in the first battle. Once again, gonna go straight for the Grass Knot. Can we connect one more time? Grass Knot coming through. Does huge damage up against Tapu Fini once again. And then we swap here, and by coincidence, the opponent swaps at the same time into a Registeel, and this is actually looking really good for me now. We can go for the Flame Charge before they potentially debuff me with a Zap Cannon, which is huge for me because now I can no shield and I will be able to go for a full Incinerate farm down. Actually, because they get the debuff, we get even more energy in. And now at this point, I'm going to blind throw a Flame Charge here. Don't really care what comes in. It's actually a Poliwrath, so could have gone for the Side Shock here. And if I went for the Side Shock, I believe I would make it to another Side Shock. But unfortunately, because I go for the slightly higher energy Flame Charge, we just miss out, which is unfortunate. But we still got both shields remaining. Things are still looking very good for us. I'm going to go straight for the fly here. Honestly, don't care if they try to make a catch or not, because we need to take them out anyways with that Tapu Fini. So we're going to shield this up. I'm expecting the opponent to swap back into their Tapu Fini at some point, and they do. I'm just going to shield this up here. The opponent full sends a Moonblast, so that's fine with me. We're going to bank a fly, then swap into my Salazzle. I will be able to go for a Poison Fang here, and this will just guarantee that a fly will certainly take out the Poliwrath here. The opponent can go for a Scald. They can take me out just before we make it to Poison Fang number 2, but it does not matter. Scald takes us out. We go for the fly that we had banked, and fly will, of course, be enough damage to take out the Poliwrath, and I'm able to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. And if you want to take your support even further, you can now become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has already become a channel member. Your support is greatly appreciated, and with that being said, thank you all so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.